All right, welcome to Microsoft Excel tips and tricks, how to use V-Lookup.
Here we are in the very first one, enrolling by date. What we're going to do is we're going to look at V-Lookup real quick because it's in your handbook. The step-by-step instructions are in there. And we're going to look over here to the right, and we actually have a place for us to put the V-Lookup function and formula to be able to look things up. And what are we going to look up with this? So an example that was given to me one time was that, hey, we've got this problem where our students are forgetting their ID numbers. And when we are in the lunch lines, for example, and we need to make sure we, count lunch, for a certain account or whatever, we have to do it by student ID number. And if they don't know their student ID number, we need a fast way to look it up. So someone suggested, well, hey, why don't we make a VLOOKUP? So if we just put a person's name in, the ID number will pop up. So right here, we want to use VLOOKUP to do that. And so let's expand that and see if we can get a little bit more room here. All right, so that's what we're going to do. And so to be able to put VLOOKUP in here, we're going to have to go to the Formula tab and try and find VLOOKUP somewhere. And again, if you go to our Intro to Excel class, you're going to see that we have all of these different types of functions. There's so many different ones that are out there. And you might not be familiar with which one it is, but it's actually right here in Lookup and Reference. And if we scroll down to the V's, we'll see VLOOKUP. And if we click on it, because we already had our cursor right here where we're going to build it out, it already knows where we're going to put it. So that's good. So functions, argument, dialog box, VLOOKUP. And so our cursor is in the first place and it says lookup value. And let's just real quick appreciate what's in this information we have here. It says looks for a value in the leftmost column of a table. So what's in the leftmost column of the table? It's the full names. And remember, that's what we want to use so we can find those kiddos' student ID numbers so we can make sure that if they're buying lunch, we account for it in their credit or their account. All right. And so it says it looks in the leftmost column of a table and then returns a value in the same row for a column you specify. So that's what we want to do. So the lookup value, and if we're looking at this and we're thinking, okay, down here it says lookup value is the value to be found in the first column of the table and can be a value, a reference, or a string. And so where is that lookup value that we want? We want to put it right here. And so it's in N5. That's where we want it. That's the lookup value. So when we type in a name there, it's going to produce the answer down below, the ID number in our example. And then the table array. And it says down here is a table of text, numbers, or logical values in which data is retrieved. And so that's the table. And so we have a choice. We can just start typing this in here, or we can select cell A1 or something, drag all the way down 500 rows, or we could just type it out. And since we know how to do that, we want to make sure that we include all of these different columns here. And then we have 474 students who want to make sure that we have room for additional students that might join our school at some point. And so let's make sure we're getting the right one. So we don't want A1, we want A2 because that's where the names are. That makes sense. So the first one we're going to type in is A2. And then we learn in our intro class that to do a range A2 through something, we have to do our colon. There it is. And then we want to go all the way to which column here? Let's go ahead and include all the way to L. And so then I'm going to type in L. I'm just doing a lowercase one. And then we're just going to make sure we have some extra room. So I'm going to say 500. I could just as easily make it 600. So that's a little confusing. It looks like 1500. It's not. That's an L. Let's make that. Come on. Work with me here. I'm going to backspace that. I'm going to put a uppercase L. Makes it a little bit easier to see. So that's A2 through L500. That's our table array. Okay, so column index number depends on what we're looking for. So we want the student ID number, and that happens to be on the first, second, third, fourth column in D. And so it's actually looking for a number. And down here it says column index number is the column number in the table array from which the matching value should be returned. The first column of values in the table is 1. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4. So the number we're looking for is 4. All right. And range lookup. This one's a little bit confusing, but if we take the time to read this, it says right down here, if we put false, it's going to find an exact match. And that's sure enough what we want. So it's not case sensitive. I'm just going to type in false. Boom, we're done. So now the lookup value, let's go back to the right here. And I apologize, this is so big. Maybe I should have used my grouping on this page. But that's where we're going to put the name in. And this is the formula for V-Lookup. All right. So there's N5 is where the lookup value, the table array is the whole table. We're interested in column number 4. And then false just means it has to be an exact match. So we say, okay. Uh-oh, it didn't work. Or did it? It actually did work, but because we have no data up here, it's not working. And if we ever want to figure out what the problem is, it says the value is not available to the formula or function. That's because we haven't put anything in there. So we can often look at that and see what's happening. And so I can go over here and find one of my favorite kiddos, our fake student, Rocky Winthrop. Isn't that a great name? So I'm just going to go up here. I'm going to select that and say Control C to copy it. And then I'm going to come over here to my VLOOKUP, and I'm simply going to paste that in there, right click, paste. There it is. And so by putting in Rocky Winthrop's name, now the VLOOKUP, which stands for vertical lookup, by the way, is 330618. And sure enough, if we go down here to Rocky, it's 330618. And so we can take any one of these names and put it in there, and it's going to give us the ID number. That's pretty cool. I'm going to click on the formula again. All right. And we are searching by name. Remember, it has to be the first column. And the first column is what? The student's full name. All right. But we can refer to any one of these we want. So let's just say, for example, we're trying to figure out entry description. Because that's part of our table range, we can do column J, but we have to know a number. It's not number 4. This is 4, so this would be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So let's go in here and change the formula. And by the way, just because I clicked on it, it's given us a visual representation of our table. But in this case, we want 10. And let's see if we can make this work. So everything else is going to stay the same. So I'm going to go ahead and say enter. All right. And so Rocky Winthrop is a returning student. And sure enough, he's number 20. We go across, he's a returning student. So let's look up a different one. Out of state, number 8. Let's go over and find that name, number 8, Karen Alei. And we're just going to click up there, and we're going to copy that real quick. Control C. We're going to go back to our VLOOKUP and click on N5 and do Control V to drop it in there. And as soon as I hit enter, it's going to say enter from out of state. That is the entry description. So again, understanding a little bit about how formulas work, we could say, student ID number, column 4, or entry description, column 5. We can move this around and we could find stuff. Depends on what we need it for. But that's the nature of VLOOKUP. So you have to have a reason to find that stuff to begin with. And so the example that was given to me by someone in the district, they actually worked for food services, and they had a problem, and they said, could you please help us do this so we could look up and find out what these kiddos, because some are really young. They might be a kindergartner. They know their name. I'm Rocky Winthrop. Wouldn't that be a great kid? And then you could type in that name, and then you could get the ID number that way so that they could do their work. So that's an example of VLOOKUP. But just know we can do some more serious VLOOKUP stuff. And so let's go ahead and shrink this down a little bit so I can see past my Zoom windows. So let's take a look. We already went to that one, short vision. Here's another one. So this one's interesting. If you put the student number, let's see where the formula is. So it's right down here in Muir. And if we look at it, this is kind of the same thing. And so it's saying put in the student number because it's all the way over on the left. Remember, it has to be on the left. So this one has student number on the left instead of full names. And so if you put in the student number, it's going to tell you, in this case, the last school that you attended, which is J, which happens to be number 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Sure enough. So again, we say that same exact way. In fact, this one's much smaller. It's A2 all the way down to K13. So one column over that we can't see. And so now we understand how that works. That's great. Well, let's take a look at this example. This particular one is referring to an entirely separate sheet, all right? So we're on the VLOOKUP tab or the VLOOKUP worksheet, and this one is referring to enrollment by date. Where's that? That's all the way up here, okay? So we're doing VLOOKUP, and it says B1 because that's where we're going to put in a name, all right? So B1, there it is, and then enrollment by date, and there's an exclamation point. So all the way over to here, but then it's going to say A1 through 474, and so we see that that's A1 would be way over there, all the way to one of these. So let's go back. It's going to refer to 4, which is the ID number. So it's kind of like the first one, but on a different page. So we can see how that one's written out. Let's see if we still have one of our kiddos' names there. There we go. So Karen Alei was the last one that I copied and pasted, and there's the ID number on a separate page. So in the case of our food workers, they could have their computer open and not see a bunch of stuff, but just simply have their VLOOKUP there and be referring to a different worksheet that has all of the student names on it. So that's pretty cool.
Thank you for joining us today to learn how to use Microsoft Excel tips and tricks, how to use VLOOKUP. Have a great day.